5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fragments of silicon, now seasoned with 8 special herbs and spices.
Welcome to not the first show of season 8. Those would have been the Sunday reviews, but the first interview show of the new season. It gets kind of blurry how we keep track of these things, but suffice it to say, it is season 8. We do know that. Mm-hmm. And if we're broadcasting on a Tuesday morning, that means we've got a guest of European persuasion on the program. And this week, we are welcoming Andreea from Sailor Sands Studio on the program.
Hi, everyone.
Right. How are you doing today?
Good. It's here in Bucharest, and happy to be here with you and talk about Black Fall.
Right. So we like to start things by getting to know the person behind the games, behind the studio, behind the whatever, and we like to, start by finding out, how did you get interested in video games in the first place?
Myself, we are a team of 8 people now, and then everyone, has worked on games before that have been launched, but this is the first game that we launch as a team. And everyone is a gamer ever since they were kids. And I joined the studio a year and a half ago.
Right. And what's the age of the people who worked on this game?
I think maybe an average of 34 or something around. So we have 2 people that are 24 years old, and but the rest of us are at least 30.
Right. Well, it's an important question because the game here, Black the Fall, has a lot of communist iconography and just infused with that whole aesthetic and ideology and all that. And I'm wondering, did anyone on the team actually experience Soviet rule?
Yeah, so half of the team were around 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 when the revolution happened. So they were enrolled in some there is a Romanian name, so there were some organizations for children up to 7 years old, and then above 7 years old, and they would all wear a uniform and participate in some organized events by the state. So, and it was especially they lived in the worst decade of communism, when there was food rationing, electricity rationing, only 2 hours live on TV with the dictator and so on. I think cartoons were only on Saturdays, like an hour. And anyway, even after the revolution, it didn't vanish. I mean, yes, the regime changed, but there were still violent manifestations, and all the buildings, the people were the same, were still there. It's just it changed bit by bit. I mean, there are still consequences today.
Right. I, I would hesitate before I'd say I'd ever know what that life was like. Um, but I was someone who grew up during that decade as well, just over here, and from our perspective, when the wall came down and communists collapsed, it all seemed to happen very quickly. Like the world changed very quickly from 1989 to say 1992, and I'm wondering how much all of that informs the gestalt of Black the Fall here.
You can see that like after the ending. I'm not sure if anyone has played to the end. Anyway, something happens at the end, and after that, it's like how we lived the manifestations afterwards, like what others obstacles we encountered afterward. But yeah, I mean, after the end of 89, so starting with the 90s, we had TV channels and products, the various products that, I mean, we could buy meat and so on. So there was a lot of companies going from public to private owned companies, and there was a lot of changes. It's just that there is some sort of mentality that stays, like not trusting people or trying to work around the rules, because the state is against you, so you have to do whatever it takes to bring things in your advantage. This sort of mentality.
That is interesting, and I suppose there is quite a bit of that in Black the Fall. Like,
it is, yeah.
It's like, I mean, there's a lot of totalitarianism infused in the game, and anyway. So we were trying to figure out exactly what is the avatar in this game. What is the player character?
He's a worker just like everyone else. So the thing is, if you see the beginning, it's just a normal working day. He's together with the other workers, but he finds an opportunity to escape. So he takes advantage of that, and from that moment on, he's a fugitive. He is no longer needed to the system, so the machines and the guards will try to kill him. And he's more like a selfish survivor, so he's no hero. He's not trying to overthrow the system or anything. He just wants to escape and survive. And you will see that because he will start to manipulate. Even here, where you're here, he's manipulating other workers in his advantage.
Right. And is that just kind of a byproduct of the game design, or is that, say, something deeper, like a representation of individualism?
Yeah. So in communism, there was no room to be a hero or to express. I mean, you were not allowed to say anything against the regime, not even in front of your friends, let's say. So it was discovered that 1 in 6 people was working with the Securitate, so they were giving you away. Whatever you would say against the regime, they would make a report. So anyone, I mean, you had one of those people in your family, you could really not trust anyone. And as kids, we were told, so for instance, some of us would listen at home Radio Free Europe. That was our way to learn news about the outside world and news about us, but not what was delivered by the state. But our parents always told us never to speak about that or to mention any ideas we hear there. Not at school, not anywhere. Because, people could tell to, the informers could go to the police, and then you could be manipulated or incarcerated or anything like that. So it was a lot of manipulation. Whoever had any sort of authority was able to manipulate you. Like in here, the main character has a designator that he has stolen from a guard, and now he has authority and he can abuse it. For instance, people who would be selling, so like a store clerk would sell meat or eggs or anything like that, they would be able to manage their little kingdom and exchange those for other services, because that type of food was very, very scarce. So it was like another currency, if you want, and they had power over it or ownership. So this manipulation gameplay technique and so on is very much representative for that period.
It makes sense, considering the themes present in the game. Like, anyway, I suppose we ask exactly what was the overriding reason to create a game such as this? Was it a way of dealing with the Soviet past, or a warning to future generations?
Also a warning for the current one. But yeah, it started from Cristi and Nicoleta. They started the idea, and they were concerned about the consequences of what they've lived, about how little people outside the communist bloc know about these things. And Cristi wanted very much to create a game about his childhood, so it's more of a manner of self-expression than a documentary. And this is proven by the fact that we have sentinels and robots and all sorts of robots. So it has sci-fi elements to it, because he was influenced by Star Wars, and he had a metal robot and metal toys when he was a kid and so on. So this is a manner of self-expression. So it's not a documentary, but it has this is how it felt and how some stuff feel about how we lived. And we haven't witnessed, for example, taking down churches. There is a scene in Black the Fall where you have to demolish a church. And this is a part of a reality we haven't lived per se, but you were not allowed to go to church. I mean, it was frowned upon, and priests would hear your confessions, and then they can go to the police and share your secrets with the police. For example, I was baptized at home, not in a church, and it was a common practice to not make your beliefs public or something like that.
I'm just trying to imagine that the level of paranoia all fostered.
Yeah, and it was not, my mother told me it was not like this. She was born in the 60s, and she said there were cartoons, and there was food, and there were movies and music. She would listen to, I don't know, Guns N' Roses and stuff like that. But the worst happened in the 80s. I think in the late 70s or something. Ceausescu visited North Korea and China, and he was very positively impressed. So that's when, but it was a combination. He also visited Paris, and he wanted to have a street larger and better than Champs-Élysées. So he created a boulevard that's pretty large, and then the House of Parliament. But we didn't have the means to build all that. So then we had the national debt. And the official reason was that we have to pay the debt. So this is why we have to save energy and food and so on. And yeah.
Like,
yeah, because during the communist era, Romania particularly had a particularly eccentric dictator, correct?
Yes, it was different than the rest of the communist bloc. So, for instance, he was not in line with the Russian president. He refused at some point, and our dictator was actually acclaimed by the West because he refused letting Russia go to Slovakia to stop the revolution. So Slovakia, I think it was Slovakia or Slovakia actually, because they were united. They wanted to, give up on communism and have a revolution and so on. And Russia wanted to go through Romania to reach Czechoslovakia and stop it, and he refused that. I know. And then US and UK were.
Yeah, that was the area of
praising
anyone who stands up
decision.
against communism is obviously good and supporting them will never have any bad downsides later.
Yeah, so his problem, was his a cult of personality cult.
Mm-hmm.
That came a bit later, yeah.
Like, was he the one who allowed, like, Dallas to be played on prime time? Am I thinking of another country?
No, it can't be us. I don't think so, no. We watched Dallas in the 90s, for sure. I mean, it was my childhood.
Yeah, I knew one of the communist dictators did that, but I wasn't sure if that was that country. Like, they wanted to show how decadent the West was, and it actually ended up working against them because, well, people
loved it. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, but anyway, so how did Sand Sailor Studio get formed?
So it started with Cristian and Nicoletta, and at first then another friend and a programmer. And anyway, at first the project was a bit different. It was black and white, 2D. I mean, this is 2D, but it has a 3D perspective. But that one was 2D entirely. It was funded on Kickstarter and so on, and then the team got to 4, I think, 2 programmers, Lico and Răzvan, and another artist, Andreea. And it's then when the game started to change. So they decided to go more and more towards this self-expression of communism and our experience and so on. So that's when, beginning of 2015, it's when it got some color, so it was not black and white anymore. It had gray and red to communicate danger. Although in the beginning, red was used for anything, like use this, or this is danger, or step here, or get out of here. And in time, we managed to have a more cohesive color language.
And
you were asking me how many, how the team got formed. Yeah.
Yes.
And then 2 more artists joined later in 2015. Andreea and Marius. I joined them in January 2016. I'm a community manager. And then another programmer joined us last year. He's the youngest, Adrian.
And, well, what personally attracted you to working at Sand Sailor?
I very much like the idea. Yeah, the idea of the game and the type of gameplay and graphics. I mean, I'm not a huge gamer. I'm rather of a casual gamer, and I need to love the graphics. First of all, if I don't like the graphics, I'm not playing a game. Yeah, and I think it's my favorite type of gameplay, puzzle games. So And I was friends with Christie and Nicoletta. Actually, most of us, except for Adrian, were friends with one of them, and or worked together on some projects at some point. Not just friends. Yeah. This is how Sense Sailor Studio was born.
Makes sense. Now, certainly not the first tale of a bunch of friends coming together and forming a development team we've heard on the program, but always nice to see. And from the sound of the things, this game was in development for like 4 years or something like that.
No, more like 3. So in 2014, it was the black and white thing, the other prototype, and then beginning of 2015, it was the first iteration that around this idea. So 2 years plus, towards 2 years and a half.
And outside of the change in colors, were there any other major development changes?
Yeah, from the first prototype.
Mm-hmm.
So that one had shooting elements, for instance. Like Christy said, when you're making your first game, you just wanted to have everything that you like in games, shooting and puzzles and survival and everything. And they were part. Sense Sailor was part of an accelerator, Execution Labs in Canada, and they spent 4 months there, from February I think to June in 2015, and that's when they brought this concept to light, because these guys were asking really smart questions, like, you really need that mechanic? How does it make the experience better? How does it make the game better? How does it say the story you want, and so on? So they were able to ask the right questions to get to a more cohesive gameplay and game look and feel, more towards what they wanted, actually, instead of just putting everything there.
Well, that's some good feedback then.
Yeah, and this is how the manipulation came up, and the puzzles, and they were all connected to communism, and it was something unique, and it didn't encompass all the gaming elements, so it made sense somehow as a gameplay and as a game experience.
Was that a difficult task?
Yeah, it was intense. I wasn't there, but I know they were working almost non-stop when they were in Canada. So by day they were attending all sorts of seminars or meetings, or on how to make a pitch, so on business side of things, on community management, on graphics, on character building, and so on. So there were a lot of areas where they could learn from, and then they would work by night, or I don't know, in the evening, or stuff like that. So yeah, and when they came back in a few months, the game was showcased at Gamescom 2015. That was the first public exhibition, and it was very well received, and it looked a lot less polished than now, but the colors and the first part of the game had around the same puzzles. Now they're just better after play tests and QA and so on.
I'm trying to think if I saw that footage or if it was from later. Do you remember seeing the black and white version of the game?
Yeah, and that's from the Kickstarter. Kickstarter was very popular, let's say. PR wise, it was very successful, and you can see it. If you Google Black the Fall, you will stumble upon some videos and screenshots and from the black and white prototype. But that one was not showcased publicly. So it was just like online.
And at what point did you guys hook up with Square Enix?
Oh, it was somehow from the beginning. So in 2014, when we had the black and white prototype, we were part of Square Enix Collective. So we enrolled on the platform, which was new. I think Square Enix Collective was born in 2014. So we were the second batch of games to submit there, and people would vote if they would buy the game or play and buy the game or not. And we got a 70 something up to 80% yes, and that was like a vote of confidence. And then we created the Kickstarter campaign together, so they gave us some advices and so on, and I think they also promoted our Kickstarter project page. And I think it was 2016 when we signed the publishing deal.
So, that sounds about right. I mean, we know the collective and like not just your game, but not like all the games that they were involved in at any given time when we've had them on. Like,
the first one I think was Goetia, published last year in April, and then they published the Turing test in August, which was very successful. And then it was us, and last week I think Children of Zodiacs.
Yes.
From Cardboard Utopia. Yeah, so they're on a roll.
Yeah. Oddly enough, we've interviewed or are going to interview everyone there. Like, we talked to Sushi, we talked to the Turing test developer. Escapes me right now.
Bulkhead Interactive, it's the studio.
Yeah.
Joe.
I'd have to look see if it was him or his partner. And we're talking to Cardboard Utopia in a few weeks. Life is strange like that.
Funny you mentioned Life is Strange talking about Square Enix, but yeah.
The pun was intentional.
Okay.
But anyway, so did Square Enix offer any feedback on the game itself, or was it like just purely promotions?
No. Square Enix handled promotion and QA, but not suggestions on the game. I mean, the game was solely ours. They would play it and share their impressions, just like we ask anyone in a playtest. Like, for instance, they would say, in this puzzle game, I didn't understand what I have to do or stuff like that, which is useful because if we have more than 2 people saying that, then we need to redo the puzzle. Or if we watch them playing and we realize that they don't figure it out at some point, we ask some questions and we realize if it's us who designed it badly or it's them who should pay more attention. But this is how we tweaked the puzzles and the game, watching people play and asking them all sorts of questions to figure out how to make it a smooth experience, but also satisfying. The good part about a puzzle game is the satisfaction you get when you figure out how to solve them.
Indeed. And did the team here play any games for inspiration?
I know Christy's inspiration was, since he was a kid, was Another World and Flashback.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
I thought that was the case, but wasn't sure because a lot of the actual movement and jumping mechanics reminded me of those games in Prince of Persia and Oddworld and the like. It's called it actually has a name. It's called the cinematic platformer.
Yeah.
It's like games where movement is a lot more quote unquote realistic, or some people would call it stiff. Like, it's not, smooth and flowing, say, like Mario jumps.
Mm-hmm.
It's very calculated and, and so on and so forth. But I thought I saw a lot of those games in Black Default here. Like, have you personally played the Out of This World and Flashback?
I haven't, no.
Anyway, let me see. You've made special emphasis on the sound design. Does that play into solving puzzles?
It does, yeah. Except for the puzzle that's based solely on sound, you can get cues on where to look at or what's happening or what you need to use based on sound, or when to run, or when, for instance, here there was an alarm when those red lights were going, but the visual cue here is massive. I mean, it's the entire screen. You figure out that something bad is happening, but yeah. So not only for danger, but also for puzzle clues.
And I suppose a question I have is, if someone is, say, deaf, will they have problems figuring out any of the puzzles or anything?
I don't think so, except for the one in the darkness, which can be solved. I mean, you can just take steps and count in your head, and I did it without sound, and there were people who did it without sound, so it can be done. I mean, I had one impressive YouTuber who played it without hands.
Wow.
Because he had a condition anyway, but he had the means or something set up, and he played the game. He finished it with all the achievements without hands.
How did he play it?
With the chin, yeah. And the mouse, and there's some sort of interface that he has on his computer that I don't know. But there is a recording with him. I mean, not just with the gameplay, with the little square that also features him playing. It's like a wake-up call.
Right.
I mean, it's very impressive.
Now, how much in terms of like real world iconography made it into this game? Because not only did we see you see obvious things like the sickle and hammer, but I recall like in the outdoor areas seeing references to Chernobyl and Pripyat.
Yeah, and there are a couple more real life inspirations. For instance, in the ending. Right. The ending is very much inspired. I mean, there is a building there. You will see it. It's the exact building that we have in Bucharest, and in the same condition as in the game. The tearing down churches, a lot of the blocks. So there are some chapters as you go out of the factory. There will be that area like Chernobyl, like outside the factory where people would work, and then there is the city. So in the city, all the blocks look like almost contemporary suburbs of Bucharest and other cities.
Like, that's interesting. Like, admittedly, that's the kind of local reference that's probably going to be lost on someone such as I.
Yeah, it depends on how you play. There were people who said they know after playing it they want to know more, and there are people who don't care as much. I mean they care more about the gameplay and how they feel rather than these references and so on. So each person takes what they need or what they want from the game, but that's fine. I mean, you can still have an experience without knowing, because it feels gloomy and oppressive either way.
Right. So shifting over to the engine now, this game is made in Unity, correct?
In Unity, yeah.
Yeah. Did you get any feedback on that particular aspect? Because, well, there's a perception about Unity games that's currently ongoing and how, well, they're not very good.
It was challenging. Because with every update, something crashes. Then, but it was also kind of helpful. I mean, it was okay. Without Unity, we couldn't have made this game. And we have one of the programmers has created a interface system for the level designers, and where you can have diagrams, so that the designers, the level designers, wouldn't have to go into code, but they would have like a diagram that connects the event. So you would have like little squares that you connect with a simple line, and if this happens, if not this happens, and everything triggers. And for some puzzles, there are some really complex diagrams.
Mm-hmm. Like, what was sort of the most complex puzzle that was developed for the game?
There was, I knew at some point which one was like diagram wise, like events wise, not from the player perspective, but from the game perspective. But I forgot. It was I think one in the outside. It was not in the factory. It was in the outside world. Because I won't give any, but I mean, this is not a spoiler because it's in the game description. So at some point, the avatar has a pet, a robot. And that's when things get even more complicated, because you have two characters and they depend somehow on each other. And then as many objects as you have to interact with, they have to behave in a certain way. So it's in the outside, but I don't remember which one is it.
Fair enough. I mean, there are a fair amount of puzzles from what I remember. Now, getting back to the issue of Unity, how well did the game run on the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4? And was there any difficulties getting on those versions?
Yes, there were.
Not surprised.
Yes, there were. So we were very happy with the game on PC, and then we had to have the game on consoles, and it wouldn't run. I mean, it would run at a really low frame rate. So we had, but that's a good thing, because optimizing it for consoles, we actually also optimized it for PC, and we can now run it on decent machines, not just super machines, and it can run smoothly. Yeah.
And that sounds about right. We've talked to other developers in the Unity engine, and they've said the same thing about getting stuff to work on consoles.
What I remember specifically is that it was easier for PlayStation than for Xbox One.
That's not surprising, because the PlayStation 4 is more powerful than the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose, what are the specifications to get Black the Fall to run? Like, how good of a computer do you need to get the game, to run and to look good and all that stuff?
I can't go on Steam right now. I like recommended or minimum?
Let's say minimum.
Yeah. For minimum, it's a bit more tricky. So you need at least Windows 7. But what matters most, I think, it's the graphics.
Mm-hmm.
So the minimum is a GeForce GTX 550 Ti, or a Radeon D7 250.
I gotta admit, I'm not exactly sure how that translates. Petty fan, you speak this language better than I do. What is that?
I only read the specification from Steam,
Yeah.
so this doesn't mean I honestly, yeah.
Basically, those are like, I think, 7-year-old cards.
Yeah,
So if you have a computer relatively modern, you should be fine.
So it will run on a lot of things. My computer had a little bit of it seemed like it was straining a little bit at times, but my computer's graphic card isn't very
Yeah,
good.
so the minimum are not for the best experience. The recommended are for best experience. The minimum is when you switch it a bit and you compromise. So the recommended are NVIDIA GTX 680 and AMD Radeon R9 280X, which are more powerful.
Yeah, those are like just the next generation up from the minimum requirement one, so they're still not that bad.
Yeah, yay. But anyway, the better the machine, the better it runs.
Of course.
Yeah.
Though this does lead me to my next question. Have you given any consideration to porting the game to the Nintendo Switch?
We have. We don't know anything for sure, but we have.
Okay.
I mean, I can't say anything except for this.
Okay. Okay. That's an interesting enough answer, and we'll leave it at that. Like, any sort of plans for DLC in the future, or major updates, major bug fixes?
We just released a patch today, like an hour earlier. No, an hour before our call started, and it has a few fixes and it has a few improvements from the first settings. For instance, the most common request as we launched was VSync. Everyone wanted a VSync, so now we have that option. Or it was very common for people to ask to be able to crouch with the control key. We also have implemented that, and some bug fixes.
And are there any more patches incoming?
It depends on the feedback we receive. So this patch was based on people's feedback on Steam and Kickstarter. We plan to have the game working on Mac and Linux in autumn. So that will be also an update.
Okay.
And we're also looking at mobile, but for next year.
Interesting. Like,
we're not sure yet what will happen with mobile, because it's not as easy as porting, because you have to change the graphics.
Right. I'm like, well, in terms of mobile, are you looking at iOS or iOS and Android? Or
both.
Android?
Both.
Yeah, I'm like, especially when you get like Android in the mix, like, because having talked to mobile developers, iOS, there's only a certain amount of iDevices you have to worry about. And
Android can be on anything.
Yeah. There's like potentially hundreds of configurations. It's a lot like developing for the PC.
Yeah. We know. This is why it got postponed. But yeah.
Right. And well, I'm also going to be interested to see how that works controls wise, because, well, touchscreen.
Yes, we'll see. So we still need to test. We'll see.
Right. And so how has the game been doing on the marketplace since it got released?
It was a huge hype press-wise. So we were very happy to be reviewed by Kotaku and Polygon, IGN, and so on. So this was good.
Indeed.
But we had, so our game was in early access. And this is the first thing we did. We had our game on early access in 2014, so 3 years ago. And then we took it down from early access because it was not suited for early access. It was just a prototype. And we didn't have, so the game was not included in like new releases on Steam and stuff like that because of that. So this was our drawback on Steam.
Like, was there any way to, I'm guessing there was no way around that.
No. Mainly because we had all of that when we released in early access.
That is unfortunate.
You'd figure they'd have something for people who just come out of early access.
I know it was a price we paid, but we didn't do it like people do early access. Like, this is an early access, and in a few months we'll release the full game. We took it out from early access, and then 3 years later we released the game. So Valve was not happy with that.
I'd imagine so.
Yeah. So now we know, and we can tell everyone, like, don't do that.
Yeah, a lesson well learned, I suppose.
Yes.
Now, is the game only on Steam currently in terms of PC marketplaces?
No, I think it's also on the Square Enix store, on Humble Bundle, on something else, but I don't remember.
GOG?
I will need to check. Maybe. I was by then, I'm not sure. Something with green something.
Green Man Gaming?
Yes, that's for sure. I'm not sure about GOG. I need to check.
Don't think I saw it on GOG.
I don't think so. No, I mean,
now, the point of order is it is available on a number of storefronts.
Yeah.
Right. And I suppose my final question here is, have you given any thought to the next project beyond anything Black the Fall?
We have. Yeah.
I'm like, obviously, I'm not expecting any like details at this point because I'd imagine that's all very rudimentary, given that the game just released and there's still post-release stuff to do with it.
Exactly. Yeah. So no, we are having like brainstorm meetings and iterating on and changing stuff from one week to another for the new project. So it's not much I can tell you about, but it something completely different.
Makes sense. Like, right. So, any final questions from my colleagues here?
I'm good.
I think I had most of my questions answered, although I missed a few minutes while I was taking care of a cat thing.
Situation.
All right. I suppose that'll do it then. Andreea, thank you very kindly for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Hopefully we'll have you on the program again whenever, the next project is ready to be discussed.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Be sure to join us for our Wednesday show happening at 9 o'clock in the evening, Eastern Time, where we'll be having Michael Hartman of Frog Dice back on the program. I'm looking forward to it, and we hope you are as well. Until then, we wish you good gaming.